Did you know that slowing down after 55 can actually rob you of your best years still ahead? I get it. The temptation is real. You see your friends slowing down and you tell yourself, hey, I've earned the right to take it easy. But here's the reality. Slowing down now can make it a lot harder to stay sharp, healthy, and engaged later. And you've heard the phrase, a body in motion stays in motion. And that's never been more true than it is right now. In this video, I'm sharing 3 reasons why taking it easy after age 55 is too risky, and 3 ways to fight it and counteract it so you can thrive for decades to come. Last week I saw a headline that asked, is age 55 to 65 the last decade before decline sets in? And I haven't been able to stop thinking about that headline. And it's exactly what pushed me to make this video today. Because whether you're planning to retire and relax or keep working as long as possible, your mid-50s are crucial. This isn't just a transition, this is a turning point. One that can either set you up for the next 20 or 30 years, or one that can start closing doors prematurely on your life. If you let your body or your mind coast now, it gets a lot harder to re-engage later. Think of it like a fire. It's always easier to keep the fire going than to reignite it after it's gone cold. Reason number 1 to not slow down right now is because mobility and muscle loss, they happen fast when you slow down. After 55, muscle loss starts to decline even more rapidly. And it doesn't just affect strength. You lose stamina, endurance, balance, metabolism, and stability right along with it. And once mobility goes, so does independence. Muscles are like power stations within your own body. Yes, they require energy to function, but they also generate it, helping you power through your day with less fatigue. And there's even a law in physics that backs this up. Energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred or transformed. So in a very real sense, it's energy in, energy out. And that's exactly what our muscles do for us. When you're taking care of your muscles, by default, you're also taking care of your metabolism, your balance, your energy, your resilience. So how do we counteract this loss? It's simple. You have to do hard things. Now, I know that doesn't sound appealing, but your muscles, they love it. Just take your pick, whether it's working with dumbbells or your own body weight, like push-ups and squats. Maybe Pilates is more your style. Even walking. As long as you walk with some weights, you can walk with some dumbbells in your hands, ankle weights. I know right now it's really popular to wear the weighted vests. If you do a full strength workout, you only need to do that 2 to 3 times a week, according to guidelines that are set forth. And whether it's a devoted workout or just doing exercise snacks throughout the day, which is what I'm doing, you're preventing that premature decline by not slowing down before your time. Okay, reason number 2 to not slow down after 55 is that mental sharpness, it fades without challenges. If you start entertaining thoughts like, I've been in the rat race for decades. I'm tired. I'm ready to be done with all this. Just be careful, because those thoughts alone, they can quietly start steering you in a direction that you really don't want to go. Mindset is everything, and mental skills are just as critical to your long-term health as diet or movement. If you're not challenging your brain, memory and problem-solving skills, they'll start to dull. It's like a muscle, use it or lose it. Here's the kicker. Our brains are only 2% of our body weight, but they consume 20% of our daily calories. That makes it a high-performance machine. And just like any other machine, it'll rust if it doesn't get used. So how do we counteract that? First, let's feed it right. If our brains consume that much energy, you want that fuel to be clean and nutrient rich. Put these 5 things on your grocery list. Number 1, berries, especially blueberries. They're full of antioxidants. Number 2, fatty fish like salmon. You don't like fish? Maybe a good omega-3 supplement. Number 3, leafy greens. They're full of folate, lutein, beta-carotene, vitamin K. Number 4, eggs, especially the yolks, because they're a really good source of choline for memory. And lastly, walnuts. They're loaded with ALA and powerful antioxidants. Just call those 5 foods your brain superfoods. But now fuel isn't enough. Your brain also craves stimulation. What sparks your curiosity? What do you want to learn more about? Think of your brain as a little puppy, eager for attention, excited to explore, waiting for you to throw it something new, a book or a puzzle, a challenge. But if ignored for too long, it shuts down, it stops hoping, it stops anticipating. It shifts into low reserve mode, almost like low power mode on our TV. And that's exactly what we don't want our brains to do. Okay, Gen Xers, before we get to the next reason, if you're still here, you probably belong here. So if you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. Okay, next reason why you don't want to slow down after 55. Reason number 3 is energy declines when you coast. So you're in your mid-50s, you're starting to feel it. The urge to give your body a break or your mind a holiday. You've worked hard, you've earned the rest, but there's one thing that keeps us going. Even when slowing down sounds really tempting, and that's drive. When you stop doing things that excite you or challenge you, your drive shrinks. Little by little, you start adapting to a smaller life without even realizing it. You stop growing, you stop stretching, you stop learning. Opportunities, they don't come around anymore. Now, how do we counteract this and keep our drive alive? This might be the trickiest, but maybe the most important. Think of drive like the transmission in your car. The transmission's job is to send power from the engine to the wheels. It's what actually makes the car move. And drive is the gear that moves you forward. Not neutral, not reverse, and definitely not park. So how do you stay in gear? Start with small, intentional habits. Before bed each night, think about the next morning and what you're genuinely looking forward to. Something positive. And it doesn't have to be big. It can be that cup of coffee you're going to get in the morning. It could be a walk with your dog tomorrow, a steak for dinner, or a chapter in the book that you're currently enjoying. Let those be your thoughts before you drift off to sleep. Also, make plans. Something next week, something next month, something next year, a trip or a project, a milestone birthday celebration, or a family reunion. Even small moments count because your brain needs something to anticipate. Anticipation, it builds energy, and energy is what shifts us into drive. Being in your mid-50s is not a countdown to a senior living facility. For too long, this stage of life has been portrayed as the beginning of a slow decline, but I choose to see it differently. I see it as a climb, not a fall. A climb that resists the pull of age and inertia. And the only way to keep climbing is simple. You got to keep moving, keep learning, and keep something on the horizon. Because the more you feed your body, brain, and spirit now, literally and metaphorically, the richer the rest of your life will be. We only get so many years where we still have our independence, our strength, our clarity. So we've got to work while it's still day. Check out this video next. It explores how to take back control of your 50s body and slow down the aging process. I'll link it right here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Let's keep on trucking. I'll see you again soon. Bye.